Okay, then good afternoon, everybody. My name is Florian Maurer, and I'm working for the Vorarlberg University of Applied Sciences. Vorarlberg, that is a very small part of Austria, one of the 9 countries, and it's the most western one. And we have some relations to the Dutch people because the royal family is always spending her winter holidays in Lech, that is in Vorarlberg, and just 15 kilometers away from my home. I'm working for the Vorarlberg University of Applied Science as a researcher, and this since 2011. And my fields of interest are coming or are in the fields of information systems engineering. So I'm doing everything that needs to be digitalized. I'm working in the field of digital innovation in combination with European digital innovation hubs. I'm doing innovation engineering and entrepreneurship, at least from a theoretical perspective. And I'm belonging to the Austrian School of Economic Thought. So we will later get an explanation what this school is about. And here I'm focusing on Schumpeterian innovation. And Schumpeter is one of the pioneers in innovation management, innovation research, and technological progress. And I'm also familiar with the game theory. So it's game theory that is a decision-making tool, and it covers strategic decisions or decision making and gives you the ability to figure out how to act in a strategic situation. I entitled my lecture today, Who Lets the Entrepreneurs Out? As a researcher, I'm doing a lot of research, and uh, this present or this lecture today that is about the presentation of a paper that is under development. This paper, it's brand new. It will be submitted either to the European Academy of Management or the British Academy of Management. So these are the two largest economic conferences um, in Europe. And yeah, let's see, I give you a taste about my research. I split this lecture in 4 modules. I'm trying to be a little bit interactive. So the module number 1, so what is an entrepreneur or what is innovation? I would look, I would like to do it in an co-creative way, in an interactive way, and I will ask the students to give their approach, their explanation about entrepreneurship, and what innovation is. Then module 2, that is about entrepreneurial characters. We will dive into the past. So we go back until the 18th century, and we will elaborate a profile of the entrepreneurs of the past and the entrepreneurs of today, because in module 4, we would like to give you, or I would like to give you an exercise about how an entrepreneur is doing a decision and what's going on if an entrepreneur meets an entrepreneur of the past meets an entrepreneur of today. So I'm starting with module number 1, and I'm asking you, what is an entrepreneur? If the session becomes too silent, I will just unmute some students and ask for their opinion. So please be prepared for an randomly chosen but immediate answer to this question.
Florian, students are mute, so they are asking on answering to the chat.
Okay. Okay. So I cannot unmute the students.
Yes, you can't unmute. They are muted already, but all the questions are going to chat.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, then, my friends, please give me your insight, your answers about what is an entrepreneur.
There
So,
are some reactions already.
yes, I can see it.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. That's Sean. Yeah, okay.
Sean said it's a solution finder. Noah's approach is thinking outside the box to find innovative solutions. There are some thumbs up. A problem fixer, an innovator, Joaquin. Patricia, do you have an opinion? Ines. Mo Rickman, do you have an approach? Someone who creates a new innovator business, bearing most of the risk and enjoying most of the rewards. Business-aware solution fixer. Someone who seeks to create a solution for an existing problem. They transform their service product to provide more value. Create solutions to problems, innovates, improves the world, add value, not just a maker of money. Someone resilient that aims to add value. Very good approaches. Very nice to read. Yanira, do you have an idea? Or Sonia? Someone who questions and proposes new strategies. Someone able to identify opportunities. A businessman with a vocation. Very good answers to this question. An entrepreneur is a dreamer who succeeds in moving forward to make their dreams a reality. Okay, then I would say we give you 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So thank you for your contribution. And what you can identify here, that is, we definitely have some conflicting profiles of an entrepreneur. And of course, what we can identify, that is an entrepreneur or entrepreneurship, that is a very special kind of labor. For example, entrepreneur act as a middleman, as an arbitrator, as a leader, as a coordinator, or as an employer. So they maintain definitely distinct skills and capabilities that really very, very scar to economics. They have a very, very strong ability to innovate, and what is in their aim? To disrupt existing and economic equilibria. For example, with their innovation, they provide a never-ending process of renewal and adaptation. They focus on imitation and invention and destroy existing economic equilibria. What do I mean with economic equilibria? For example, as you can see here from this slide, the economy faces upswings and downswings. For example, every new technology will create an economic upswing until the end of this innovation. Then the economy will face a downswing. In the Schumpeterian sense of innovation, he's talking about basic innovations. Basic innovation, that means they appear every 50 to 60 years and they revolutionize the whole business, the whole economy. So, for example, revolution would be the integration of mechanics or mechatronics into manufacturing, and that creates new opportunities on a very, very large scale. Then we are having smaller business cycles like the jugular cycle. The jugular cycle appears in a statistical way 3 to 4 times in a Kondratiev cycle, and it is about the revolutionization of an industry. An industry, so the economy is built on industries, and an industry also can innovate by its own. And within these cycles, there are smaller cycles, like, for example, the kitchen cycle, that provide innovation to a specific branch within an industry. You can compare it like, for example, when you are in a supply chain, you have distinct roles. And for example, the kitchen cycle is focusing on a distinct role within an industry, the transportation industry, or the manufacturing industry in supply chain, the retail industry in supply chain, or the producing industry in the supply chain. Let's turn the perspective on the microeconomics. So how to disrupt economic equilibrium on microeconomics. Microeconomics here in this sense means how an entrepreneur is destroying the equilibrium of organizations that are already established in the market. This happens, for example, on the price level. So an entrepreneur, a new innovator, is able to produce, for example, on lower prices, or offer goods on lower prices, to produce the goods on lower costs. The entrepreneur, for example, also is able to implement new technologies that increases, for example, the efficiency of the production process, but also it is possible that they can, for example, influence the consumer preferences, so make the own product more attractive than the competitor's product good, and also they have influences on the consumer's income. So, example, the consumer can save some money and put this money into other goods. And as you can see here on this slide, that is about the demand curve and the supply curve. And if an entrepreneur on the macro level, on the micro level, disrupt an economic equilibrium, then it shifts the supply curve or the demand curve, so that the competitors are challenged to go with this innovation or find other mechanisms that prevent them for a breakdown and the squeeze out of this particular branch or this industry. When we turn our perspective on the macroeconomic level, as presented before, the macroeconomic level is about a basic innovation. Basic innovation are, for example, on as presented in the right-hand side of the slide. It starts in the 18th century with the mechanical revolution. For example, do you have the picture in mind about the steering wheel? So the steering wheel was innovated by the steam engine, and the steam engine allowed to mechanize all the energy that were provided by human labor. In the 19th century, there was a new organizational form, the assembly line. I don't know if you have the picture in mind of the first car that was produced from an assembly line. It was by the US car manufacturer Henry Ford, and he provided the same type of the car in a very big scale. And also it was about the electrification. And such innovations, they disrupted the manufacturing scene, the supply chain scene, the industries from the ground. And now we are, according to this figure, we are in the transition to the industry 4.0 and to the 5.0 revolution, which means we are more and more integrating cyber physical systems and IT performances into our manufacturing processes. And also we are integrating more and more artificial intelligence into industry. And this, for example, we are at the turn to the industry 6.0 approach, and that would have the beneficial to substitute human labor or office labor with IT and artificial intelligence skills. So the question now is, what is an innovation? So we heard that innovation from the entrepreneurs disrupts economic equilibriums. They destroy existing practices, existing processes, but what exactly is an innovation? What is the difference between an innovation, an imitation, and an invention? So it's again, I would like to ask you to participate in the chat and provide your opinion so that we can learn from each other, and maybe we can identify conflicting statements that we can discuss. So it's very silent in the
I
chat.
can start here, so maybe someone else is also making questions. Maybe it's imitation is the easiest way.
Yeah, imitation is easiest way. You can read it. The system modifications that are more efficient. Innovation can be incremental or disruptive. Incremental if add something new to a existing thing. Disruptive is something new. It's not a new invention, but doing things differently. Processes which key aspect are novelty, value creation, application, and existing. A significant improvement. For me, invention is creating something completely new, while innovation is improving or applying ideas in a way that makes a real impact. An innovation will build on top of existing product and improving it some way. An imitation is something that already exists. An invention is something completely new. A renewal that works and creates value. Very good answers. Very good answers. Thank you for your proactivity. Innovation is a better way of doing familiar tasks. More ideas about what is an innovation, an invention, and an imitation. So I'm going to the participant list. Maybe Ines, do you have an idea that you did not share yet? Or Mo, Marcello, Luis, what is your idea about innovation? Paul, maybe you can give us your insights. Innovation is improve the product with new materials, new concepts. Okay, then I would propose that we are going on. Think about we can improve in something like products. Thank you, Andrea. So to answer this question, I'm taking over a Schumpeterian view. And the Schumpeterian view distincts the innovation from the imitation and the invention. In his writings or in his research, he differentiates the invention with a kind of an idea that is created but never finds the way to the market. An imitation that is an existing product, an existing service that is adapted from a competitor or maybe from a befriended organization, from other stakeholders into their own organization. And the innovation here, Schumpeter identified several levels of innovations. Let's go to the creative destruction. So, for example, Schumpeter identifies the product innovation as one of the levels of innovation. Here on the left-hand side, you see a Nokia cell phone. So it was fashioned in the 2000s, 2001, 2003, 2005, until here you can see the launch of the new Apple cell phone. So it was a disruptive innovation providing the same services that an Nokia cell phone did, but with more features, like going into the internet, making deals, provide several options, several applications to be executed on this. And based on this innovation, Nokia lost a lot of market shares and exited the market in 2012 or 2013 by the purchase of the cell phone branch to Google. But also Schumpeter is focusing on process innovation. Process innovation are, for example, to implement more efficient services into an organization, to provide a faster process into an organization that challenges the competitors, and the competitors are facing higher production costs. So the process innovation is always about to decrease the production and the manufacturing costs and challenge the competitors on a financial level, on the cost level. So they are focused to become the financial leaders of their branch or of their industry. But also what Schumpeter identifies as an innovation, that is the development of a new sales market. So a new sales market that is to extend their own borders. So to go, for example, into a new region with your product, if you produce locally, go into a broader region, go into the continent, leave your own country and act globally. A very good example that would be the Spanish organization Zara. Zara is producing locally but acting global. And here they have developed several sales channels that are unique to all other fashion industries. Then also what Schumpeter identified, that is the development of new sources of raw materials and semi-finished products. So he's going away from a single sourcing perspective. He's going into a multiple sourcing perspective. So instead of focusing on one producer of the raw materials, he's going into a broad field of multiple producers, but also he's going from regional sourcing into a global sourcing. So everyone, he considers in this sense the world as a workbench, and everyone in the world is contributing to your product or to your service. In the next, he identifies the reorganization or the monopolistic organization. With this approach, Schumpeter is focusing on the creation of unique technologies like Google did in 2000 years or Microsoft did before. So they have a unique selling proposition that cannot be disrupted by competitors or only really hardly to be achieved. Or he's also focusing on the opposite. For example, if you build up a monopolic organization, it will not take that much time until the first competitors will come. And with this approach, he's saying an entrepreneur and his innovation will also do the breaking of a monopoly. Like here, you can see the logo from AT&T. AT&T was the largest telecommunications providers until the 80s of past century, but then they had to split up their monopoly, and in the US there are now several of tech organizations there. And also major to Schumpeter, that is the technology, the development of the technology, technological progress, and also the application of technology into the manufacturing thing. So, for example, as you can see here on this picture, Elon Musk is conquering not only the world, but is going outside the world. He would like to go to the Mars and send and establish a mission there. But also AI, artificial intelligence, has the potential to disrupt everything that we know right now. And as least, Schumpeter also identify organizational measures, like, for example, the restructuring of a company or an industry. And as you can see here, the Nokia logo, I told that they sold their cell phone branch to Google, and they now are concentrating on seamless communication with 5G. So they built up a new branch, and now they are the world's technology leader in 5G communications and 6G communications, and are now on a unique point where no competitors can compete. What I would like to do right now, that is to conclude the module number 1. So, and I would like to give you one sentence from Schumpeter, and he's saying in the book, The Capitalism, Socialism, and Democracy, that conquering the air is far more important than then conquering of areas limited by economic and or geographical boundaries. What he is thinking about that at this time? It was in 1934. It was not that familiar that the aircraft industry becomes such powerful position in the economic landscape. But he identified that if you conquer the air, so that is not limited by economic and geographical boundaries, and it gives you a lot of new potential, new possibilities, opportunities that you can leverage. And examples are, for example, Musk with his mission to Mars, or also it relates to Musk with private satellites. They are used for GPS tracking, but also AI will have such potentials that are not limited by geographical boundaries, because everyone can exploit AI. So I'm at the end of the session number 1, and do you have some questions? I'm opening the chat. There are 2 new messages to me I didn't see before. So because then I would propose that we have a break for 3 minutes, and 40 minutes after 2, we go into the next module, the module number 2, that is about the entrepreneurial characters. What is a character of an entrepreneur and how they compete among each other. Would like to focus on for economics. Does anybody know someone of this picture? So the question is, do you know someone on this picture? No. Number 2 is Henry Ford. So you mean this guy on the right, bottom left, Sigmund Freud.
Yes, number 2, yes.
So I need to disappoint you. You are not right. So the guy on the left-hand side above, that is Adam Smith. Adam Smith, that is the pioneer in modern economics. The guy below, that is Max Weber. Max Weber is a famous sociologist from Germany. On the right-hand side above, that is Joseph Schumpeter. And the guy below Joseph Schumpeter is Israel Kirchner. The left-hand side belong to modern or to the neoclassical economics. And the right-hand side that belong to the Austrian school of economics. Is someone familiar with one of these personalities? So I assume this, and that is also very good, because I prepared an overview about the thinking of Smith, of Weber, of Schumpeter and Kirchner about entrepreneurs and about entrepreneurship. I'm going now into the second slide of this session. So, and here I'm focusing on Adam Smith. And Adam Smith was born in 1723 and died in 1790. And during his lifetime, he had one famous publication and 2 publications that are recognized. He was a Scottish ethicist and economist and was a professor at the University of Glasgow for a while. But after his exit of the University of Glasgow, he made an educational tour to France. And then afterwards, he retired because he got a fund from a duke, and he were able to work on his very famous book, The Wealth of Nations. Within this book, The Wealth of Nations, he's describing the invisible hand. So he's very famous for the invisible hand. That is a metaphor directly coming from Adam Smith, and says that the market regulates itself. So so the first announcement of the invisible hand does not have any relation to economics. So he used this notion in his paper about the history of astronomy, and it was really a metaphor saying to explain something unbelievable, not explainable things. Then also he used this metaphor in the theory of moral sentiments, and here you also use this metaphor for saying something not describable, something not explainable. And in The Wealth of Nation, he is also using the invisible hand as a metaphor and saying that the market regulates itself. And that is a really very, very modern interpretation of Adam Smith, because as an ethicist, I would not give the signature that he really would like to have an uncontrolled market regulation or uncontrolled market without regulation from public forces. And Adam Smith, he's considered as the pioneer of neoclassical economics, and he is driven by the aim to develop economics as a rational, natural, science-based scientific discipline. Smith starts his economic developments from the Physiocrats, from the Scottish Enlightenment, and from Stoicism. So the Physiocrats, on his tour to France, he made some connections with the Physiocrat. And the Physiocrat, as the name says, has something to do with physics, with the body. And a Physiocrat considers or compares the economy to a human body. And the Physiocrats would say, yeah, the finance flow of a business, that is something comparable to the veins of a human body. The brain of a human body, that is something comparable to the top management of an organization. The heart is something comparable that gives the pulse in an organization. So, for example, an innovation. And entrepreneurs, in the sense of Smith, or what I also would like, the Scottish Enlightenment, they would like to do, they bring back some speculation to a rational level. So they would like to explain everything in a natural-based view. So they are focusing on really deductive argumentation based on theory, based on hypothesis tests. And also Smith, that was a Stoicism, and Stoicism that is in the Christian ethics very important, and they take it as it is and do not complain about any movements there. And based on the Physiocrats' perspective on the Scottish Enlightenment and Stoicism, he developed his entrepreneur. And an entrepreneur, in the sense of Smith, is equivalent to an owner of capital, and is, for example, either a landowner, a tenant, a master craftsman, a manufacturer, or a merchant. And here he also is differentiating between the landowners and the others. A landowner, for him, is or does not provide great entrepreneurial effort, do not perform much labor, but automatically receive an income. And the second category, for example, the tenants, the master craftsmen, the manufacturers, and the merchants, they live out of their capital investments. Their labor is to manage and monitor economic actions. This is based on the pursuit of profit. So the pursuit of profit in a rational way, that would be to provide self-interest, and is nothing about the benevolence. And here Smith also explained that profit, that is just another name for the return on the capital investment. It is the only motive that leads this type of entrepreneur. So the manufacturer, the merchant, they provide the pursuit of profit, their self-interest, so that they have an income, and with this income they are striving for prestige and excelling in their profession. Entrepreneurs are characterized by lifelong diligence, thriftiness, and constant efforts. But also, as Smith highlights, this category of entrepreneurs have higher business acumen and expertise than the most of the landowners. And the superiority of an entrepreneur lies in the knowledge of their self-interest. So they know exactly what they want, the pursuit of the profit, and the return of their capital investment, and the capability to activate that capital. Smith's entrepreneurs is bold. He is explaining that dangerous and daring undertakings, such as speculations, often seem to make a profession, especially to young people, and the setup of new business and branches of trade is an incentive for them. They are not afraid to invest considerable capital to improve property, either in agriculture, in industry, business, or in any branch of economic performance. Smith, in his development of the entrepreneur, pays a lot of attention to the entrepreneurial risks and opportunities, because every entrepreneur, as he's describing, overestimates their chances of success, and at the same time they underestimate the risk of loss. And the risk of loss, as Smith states, is always underestimated than it is actually. Smith's entrepreneur provides high levels of attention, order, and economic efficiency. Every entrepreneur who employs workers will inevitably organize labor as most effective and efficient. Major to this efficiency and effectivity, that is the division of labor. That is another pillar of Smith's works, economic works. Because the division of labor, it makes workers' job easier, and many goods can therefore be produced with less labor than before. Workers that do not reproduce the full value of their consumption are unwisely used. And the division of labor, that is a key driver of innovation and technological progress. It is reflected in better machines, in greater dexterity, as well as in increased division of labor again. So it's coming from the pursuit of self-interest into the division of labor, that again creates innovation and influences the pursuit of profit, so the return on capital investment. And what is also important, that is decision making, according to Smith, is based on plans and projects, which in turn regulate, manage, and monitor the organization of the labor to be performed. So it is a very, very static manager. The entrepreneur is working on pre-planned plans and projects. And the investments such into raw materials and tools and stocks, that is the entrepreneur's livelihood. In the end, he did not, or he does not separate the business of an entrepreneur with its social life, because he considers an entrepreneur or the entrepreneurial incomes as the same. He needs to provide the expenditures of the business and for the social life. Smith considers entrepreneurs and their employees as two entities of rivalry interest. Entrepreneurs organize themselves and join forces to, among other things, to coordinate. Once the entrepreneurs are organized, as Smith highlights, there is always and everywhere a kind of tacit but permanent agreement between the entrepreneurs not to raise wages above the prevailing rate. And sometimes entrepreneurs even come together to lower wages below the current level. Entrepreneurs complain about the consequences of high wages, but they never lose a word about the reprehensible consequences of their own advantages. And what else is very important, Smith explicitly warns about new laws and regulations on trade proposed by entrepreneurs. So Smith, as a moral ethicist, considers also the consequences, not only the advantages of entrepreneurs, but the consequences of entrepreneurial decision-making to the public and to the society. They need, as he's saying, they need to be examined cautiously, even suspiciously and mistrustfully. The entrepreneur's self-interest is never exactly in line with the public. Entrepreneurs are always interested in expanding the market and restricting the competition. Entrepreneurs in general are more interested in deceiving, even abusing the general public. And here, if you're following the ongoing development of liberalism of the market, the liberalists always say the Smith approach that gives us the evidence to provide market liberalism, but in fact, they're just focusing on the invisible hand, the free market regulation, but never focusing on the ethical aspects that also should be considered in entrepreneurial thinking. Let's go to Max Weber. Max Weber, that is a German sociologist and an economist, and he was a professor at several universities. For example, he was a professor at the Berlin University, in Freiburg, in Heidelberg, in Germany. Then also he was for a year, he was professor in Austria, in Vienna. And from 1919 to 1920, he was professor in Munich. And in Heidelberg, in his Heidelberg years, he had an interruption of university teaching because he experienced an illness, but he was very, very active. And in these years, he developed the Protestant ethic and the spirit of capitalism. It was published in 1905, and in 1930 it was translated into English, into an English version by Talcott Person. And Smith Weber is also a neoclassic economist. He's focusing on rationality in business endeavors, and everything that an entrepreneur is doing that is based on rationality. And also what is very important in his writings or in his approach towards entrepreneurship, that is the separation between capitalism and the spirit of capitalism. Striving for profits, as he said, and for the highest possible monetary gains has basically nothing to do with capitalism. This can be found in almost all the professions all over historical historical epochs and also all over the world. Ruthless acquisition, which is not internally bounded to any norm, has existed at all times in history. The spirit of capitalism, as Weber argues, was there before capitalism and has prevailed against a world of hostile powers, against mercantilism, against feudalism, but also against religious thinking and tradition. Capitalism, in turn, can be identical with Deming, at least with rational tempering and the unrestrained greed for gain. It is identical with profitability. The establishment of rational capitalist organization of free labor oriented on the opportunities of the market, separation of households and business compared with the pursuit of profit and of ever more profit based on rational accounting. It is best expressed in capital statement based on money and its exact calculation, plans, use of acquisition funds, plan sheets, and so on. The spirit of capitalism is an appearance of the overall development of rationalism. In example, he differs the practical rationalism, the political rationalism, the economic rationalism, the spiritual rationalism, and the humanistic rationalism. And just the acquisite drive, as Weber's highlight, was something unknown and underdeveloped in the pre-capitalistic epochs, such as the Middle Age and the ancient. Weber identifies in his writings, he identifies the modern bourgeois society as drivers for this change toward capitalism. And the modern society is liberally enlightened and tradition overcoming. So they are not based on any rules. They are not are formed in guilds, so they can act free as they would like. And the modern society that is organized on the basis of job profession born out of Christian asceticisms. Weber's entrepreneur is into this commercial middle class and capitalistic order. This order, as Weber argues, is considered as a de facto unchangeable construct. Weber describes the ideal types of entrepreneur as an rationalistic and systematic, based on business management and economic rationality, including the separation of household, so the rational lifestyle, then exact counting and capital calculation, the free labor relationships, and the focus on the chances and opportunities to the goods market. But also Weber's entrepreneurs considers the exact estimation of technological opportunities. So rational technology. So that means that they have a kind of revenue and cost analysis behind that. The predictable law and administration according to formal rules, so rational laws and legislative. So where can I bring in my own perspectives? Where are my benefits in rational laws and legislative? And an entrepreneur's character is objective and impersonal, with a measure of quimedicity. The design of the entrepreneur's entire life is based on asceticism and rationality, including the systematic and constant self-control and monitoring, as well as strict mathematical and arithmetical calculation tailored for economic success. Weber's entrepreneur is sober, sharp, and completely devoted to the case. Weber's entrepreneur considers work as a profession. It is a calling. It's a stated calling from higher spheres. And in his writing, these higher spheres, he's saying it's coming from God. And since it's a calling that is an unchangeable construct. So a smith, for example, will be a smith ever. And the division of the labor and the inherent occupational structure, that is a divine word plan. Money acquisition is the profession of an entrepreneur. And he's separating money to get money and to have no money, because wanting to be poor, as Weber argues, would be the same as wanting to be ill. The acquisition of money is based on industriousness and thriftiness, two capabilities that Weber is explaining that only can result into entrepreneurial wealth and social wealth. The goods acquisition is based on rational behavior and against irrational use of property. So irrational property, so the entrepreneur is not focusing on speculation. He never would do some speculation effect or put some money on really uncertain business endeavors. And what he's also saying, he's entrepreneur that is a political rationalist and an economical rationalist that pursues trade policy interest and social policy interests. So that is major to him. What Weber is painting in this book, The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism, that is a picture of a professional that is without spirit and a bon vivant without a heart. The entrepreneur, as he concludes, that is an unscrupulous and mistrustful person, even to his closest friend. So then let's go to the third character. So the third character, that is Joseph Schumpeter. Joseph Schumpeter, that is an Austrian economist and politician. He was born in the former Austrian Empire, so today it would be the Czech Republic. And yeah, he's one of the pioneers in innovation research. He belongs also to the Austrian School of Economic Thought. And he's educated, for example, by Karl Menger, and all the grants from the Austrian School of Economic Thought. So the Austrian School of Economic Thought is not a thinking about how the Austrians think about economics. So me as an Austrian, it is more an overall term to free markets. It is like the Chicago School or the Lausanne School, the Lausanne School of Economic Thought, that is more a static approach towards economics, and the Austrian School of Economic Thoughts, that is very, very dynamic. The Austrian school that takes the individuum into the center of observation. So because the individuum is doing the choices in the market and not the price. That is also the great dispute between, for example, the Lausanne School of Economic Thought and the Austrian School of Economic Thought, because, for example, Pareto, this guy is focusing highly on price and monetary effects, and that is not that important to an Austrian thinker. So Schumpeter, he was also the first minister of financial affairs of the first Austrian Republic, and so after the World War I, he was not occupied with a party, but he was called to become the Minister of Financial Affairs of the first Austrian Republic. And to be honest, it was a scandal. He made a lot of things that only one politician can do right now. I don't know. Maybe you have the same politician in mind that I'm focusing on, but I do not want to go in detail for that. Yeah, Schumpeter, that is a main protagonist of the Austrian schools of economic thought and compares entrepreneurs of the earlier times. So the earlier times, he is straight focusing on the neoclassic economics as a typos of a field commander. These entrepreneurs not only were financiers and the capitalists, but also the head of the organization, the top buyer and the seller, the engineers and the technical managers, the manager of the employees and the workers, as well the legal experts in the same time. In his approach, he is differentiating several roles in entrepreneurship. In contrast to his approach, the neoclassical approach fulfills the combination of production factors in a very, very bureaucratic act. It was a kind of a settlement of file, and Schumpeter criticizes that the entrepreneurial self-interest encourages the maximum performance as an error and as a naive idea. The notion of making money, as Schumpeter argues, distracts production from its social goal. Schumpeter castigates their static equilibrium-related approach, as well as their approach that, for example, the next 50 years could have the similar average growth rate as the previous years. So he's castigating this approach that you anticipate the future in a very linear approach as a statistical crime. And Schumpeter therefore concludes that the entrepreneurs of earlier times do not show entrepreneurship in its fullest form and in its fullest purity. He has, in his research, he's taking over a very contrary perspective. In contrast to the price-oriented approach in the neoclassical economics, Schumpeter turns his attention to the market and its economic individuals. So he's developing the market theory, and the market theory is composed of the individuals. So me as a buyer, you as a buyer, and you as a decision maker, and you decide what you would like to have. He's going away from this demand and the supply curve, and is focusing more on the value. What is a value of the product? And by doing so, Schumpeter considers economics as a very dynamic field. Changes arises not only because of extra social events and non-economic events, like, for example, exogenous innovation. Exogenous innovations are, for example, innovations that are coming from a war or coming from unexpected events, like the discovery of new areas, new materials, and so on. But also he sees a new type of an entrepreneur. And in his writing, he is focusing on the dynamic entrepreneur. And this entrepreneur creatively designs in the context of technology, of individual life, social life, and in political life. An entrepreneur in this sense has to implement by force renewal, change, and interrupts existing business cycles. So that is the entrepreneurial role in the Schumpeter's sense on entrepreneurship. Because these innovations and new combinations will change the world's economy. So there is always a basic innovation appearing every 50 to 60 years that brings the economic equilibrium into a disequilibrium, and this innovation destroys everything that was or is known, but at the same time it provides new opportunities, new players on the market, new possibilities. In this sense, Schumpeter's entrepreneur is led by the motto non plus ultra, the vision and the will to create an economic empire or a dynasty. The entrepreneur means a strong will to win, wanting to fight on the one hand and wanting to succeed on the other hand. The character traits can therefore be described as an initiative, as a proactive person, as an authority, and as prospective or anticipative, as well as lifelong work. Schumpeter's entrepreneurs egoistically colored and reckless. The entrepreneur provides a capitalistic, individual-centered way of life, is sober in the way of thinking, and a follower of the utilitarian philosophy. The acquisition of goods in the economic motive of Schumpeter's dynamic entrepreneur, that is, he creates restlessly and does not rest on the achieved success. As Schumpeter exemplified, and as I also concluded in the first module, the conquering of the air is far more important than the conquering of areas limited by economic or geographical boundaries. And once an entrepreneur do not create restlessly or start to rely on the achieved successes, Schumpeter assists that the entrepreneurial gets lost exactly in this moment. And this moment that is determined by circular conditions represented by the old way of thinking, the thinking of the neoclassical economics. What he also says about entrepreneurship, that is, it is a leader, and this entrepreneur leads through economic environments where, for example, the borders of business routines end. So this entrepreneur is not focusing on plans or on projects. This entrepreneur goes beyond. He restlessly seeks for new opportunities, new technologies that can be exploited, implemented, and that disrupts business equilibria. And what he's saying here, that is, in such environments, no data are available and most ordinary entrepreneurs fail. And the leadership function is not only to find or create the opportunities, but to make them lively, real, and to enforce it. This leader, so this entrepreneur provides authority, weight, and obedience, as well as goes along and ahead, withstands uncertainty and resistances. So he continuously revolutionizes its environment, its social environment, its economic environment, technological environment. And in doing so, this entrepreneur, that is a kind of a traditionless newcomer. It's a revolutionary of the economy and the involuntary pioneer of social and political revolutions. In his writings about capitalism, socialism, and democracy, please read it. Here you will find a whole process change about capitalism and why capitalism ends up in socialism and the working according to plans, and that is everything against Schumpeter's thinking. What I also said, that is, Schumpeter is differentiating the roles of or the different roles in an entrepreneurial system. Formally, so in the neo-classical approach. The owner of an organization was everyone, was everything. This guy was the seller of goods. It was the capitalist. It was the legal expert. This guy had all the different roles of in an organization in one person. But Schumpeter differs the roles, and for example, the entrepreneur and that of the inventor or the technician do not coincide. The entrepreneur is not the intellectual creator of a new combination, but can be coincidentally the inventor and vice versa. So it's just randomly. Company founders are only to a certain extent of the entrepreneurs, and the founder is a driving power in the emergence and is a typus of a modern industry captain. The founder is a faceur, and it must not be the creator of the company. And the most important role in his entrepreneurial system is assigned to the finance industry. So although the finance industry, so the investors, the bankers, and the industrial borrowers is not a new industrial phenomenon, but as Schumpeter highlights, a solid financial system is established because of the economic system. So industrial finances make available the financial resources, and the implementation of new combination in its finance is a special task. And the financier, so the bankers, become the producing or the producer of the purchasing powers and not the entrepreneurs. An entrepreneur just can say, okay, I have a breakdown and that's it. And that is why the bank, the financer, the investors have a special force in this system, because they will put the pressure on the entrepreneur to continuously provide innovation and changings to the market. And in consequence, what he's doing is he's saying that the function of a financier, of an investor, of a banker, and not the entrepreneur's function, is called the capitalist. So let's go to the fourth economist that I have identified for relevant for entrepreneurship. That is Israel Kirzner. And Israel Kirzner is also a very influential thinker of the Austrian schools of economic thought. While Schumpeter belongs to the Lausanne School of Economic Thought, and he assigned, and he considered, for example, Wilfried Pareto as one of the most influential economists of the world. Israel Kirzner wouldn't do that. Israel Kirzner is educated by Ludwig von Mises, so it's also an Austrian thinker. He's coming from Austria, but in the 30s of last century, Ludwig von Mises emigrated to America, and he's also influenced by Friedrich von Hayek, and these are what Keynes is on the left-hand side. Mises and Hayek are on the right-hand side. And Kirzner, that is an influential thinker of, first a student of these concepts and on entrepreneurship, and an influential thinker. In his writing, he's taking strong emphasis on the concept of human action. And the concept of human action, that is a market where the a market that is driven by entrepreneurial processes and entrepreneurial processes that have to do a lot with alertness to identify opportunities that have not been considered by competitors. So they have an eye for undervalued resources and for economic behavior that cannot be explained on the basis of rationality. If, for example, my statement or my hypothesis would be, if Kirchner would meet Weber, then they would have a dispute on the rationality in markets, because entrepreneurial profits are irrational instead of rational. As said, Kirchner is strongly influenced by the newer Austrian economic school of thought, and the entrepreneur that he's proposing to economics and to science originates in Mises and Hayek's concept of entrepreneurship, which is determined by the concept of human action. And the market is considered as an entrepreneurial-driven process that is never completed. So you will always find new opportunities, always. So it's a never-ending story. And in contrast, for example, to Weber or to the neoclassical economics, Kirchner's these entrepreneurs of the past maintain sheer ignorance and a false, misleading picture of real markets. For example, they consider models of perfect competition, the assumption that the market conditions are always in an equilibrium. And Kirchner says completely the opposite. Kirchner's entrepreneur maintains an imperfect knowledge. And imperfect knowledge, as he is saying, only can be reduced by creative acts of dynamic processes of discovery and alertness. So it's a never-ending search for business opportunities and market opportunities and the exploitation due to existing ignorances. So exploit the results of this discovery process and your alertness against your competitors. The entrepreneurial role is created by the state of economic disequilibrium. That is also a strong contrast to Schumpeter, because Schumpeter's endeavors start in economic equilibrium, and Schumpeter's entrepreneur introduces innovation that result into the economic disequilibrium. And Kirchner says his entrepreneurial role is created by the state of economic disequilibrium. In contrast to Schumpeter's dynamic entrepreneur, Kirchner's entrepreneur roots in dynamic economic environments, and entrepreneurial activities ensure a tendency to equilibrium. Kirchner's approach towards entrepreneurship captures, for example, knowledge-created possibilities, pure alertness to spot unnoticed and unperceived opportunities, exploitation of arbitrage opportunities, spontaneous discoveries, dynamic rivalry, competition, market interaction, and speculation with respect to an uncertain future. Kirchner's entrepreneur is not stuck in calculative behavior. Since human action is non-rational, economic behavior cannot be explained on the basis of rationality. This entrepreneur maintains limits of rationality, and the behavior partly arises out of impulses or out of unthinking habits. The perfection of knowledge, that is a key entrepreneurial element, and it involves alertness to the existing market opportunities and to the entrepreneurial profits. Entrepreneurs, in the sense of Kirchner, strongly focus on market opportunities and profit opportunities to buy and sell at different prices in a disequilibrium market within the same period. A further element to Kirchner's entrepreneur is the wise evaluation assessment of present and future realities, making the right decision that calls for reading the situation correctly, recognizing the true possibilities and the true limitation. Kirchner considers entrepreneurship as a scarce and a valuable resource. It is something that is primordial to entrepreneurial idea awaiting possible implementations. So now I know that was a little bit dry, a little bit hard to follow, but before we are going into the competitive and the interactive session, it is necessary to have an overview about the different entrepreneurial roles and characters that exist in the market. So the question now is, do you want to, or do you have some questions?
Any questions, students?
Otherwise, I would propose to have a break for 5 minutes so that we meet at 5 minutes after. And then we are going into the game theory. And then I have developed some examples how entrepreneurs meet on the market and provide decision making.
Okay, sounds good. 5 minutes break now.
Yeah, see you in 5 minutes. So, are you back?
Yeah, Florian, I'm back, of course. Thanks for your presentation so far. I have a small question that's let's say puzzling my mind, because if I look at the attitude and the power of the Schumpeterian entrepreneur, you could say we need more and more from those kind of entrepreneurs in our current market situation. How do you collaborate on, think about it, elaborate on this? If that is puzzling my mind.
Yeah, I can understand. So the thing, an entrepreneur in the Schumann sense is not afraid. So
No.
he doesn't consider any financial restrictions or something else. So that is a little bit, if we look into, for example, the US-based entrepreneurship scene and into the European entrepreneurship scene, so that means, okay, if you have a breakdown in America, so that's happened. Then you start again your life, maybe not as an entrepreneur, but you are trying to do this again.
Yeah.
In the European market, or especially here in Austria, it's a little bit more restrictive. So that means it's always a kind of the fear to lose some social appearance in this case.
Yes, I understand what you mean. Yeah.
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 A very good example of the Schumpeterian entrepreneur, that would be, for example, Mateschitz. I don't know if you heard ever this.
No, I don't. No.
Yeah, that is the owner or the innovator of Red Bull.
Oh, that of course we know him.
Yeah,
I'm a great fan of Formula One and Red Bull, so I should know.
yeah, exactly. And a lot of football teams and a lot of good things that he did. But before establishing the Red Bull company, he was CEO of or founder of at least 30 companies.
Yeah.
And with all the companies he failed, but he always got up again and tried to be innovative. And one time when he made an Asia trip, he found his unicorn. And together with his with friend from Thailand or Indonesia, he built up the Red Bull company.
Yes.
And now it's a billion company organization.
Yeah, I know the story. Yes. Yeah.
And what we have that is also in when you say to the current market in Europe, when it comes to IT or to artificial intelligence, there is a lot of discussion about GDPR and the liberalism of data. This discussion that is not in America. So they are saying they are collecting the data and the data are theirs and they can use the data. And here in Europe, we have a kind of a more socialistic approach than in America. Maybe I cannot say if it's good in America or better in America or better here in Europe. But from my feeling, that is, we have higher hurdles to overcome and to be an Schumpeterian entrepreneur. So the possibilities are a little bit more restricted than in America or in Asia.
Yeah, yeah. And from a more educational perspective, I should perhaps say that if you want to be an entrepreneur that brings renewal in society, perhaps innovations in the clear sentence, and disrupt some markets, what could we do with students who have this ability, who have this passion inside to be more disruptive than the rest? You need to recognize them too, and we try to recognize those students with this competencies, but I think they're all also being socialized within the system we have at the moment in growing to a successful entrepreneur. So this is also puzzling my mind about what can we do with the students who are more ambitious in the sense of being Schumpeterian, a Schumpeterian entrepreneur in that sense.
That's a good question. What to do?
Yeah.
The support, of course, we can provide support. We can mentor them, but to be honest, every entrepreneurship is coupled to financial investments, and only the financial investments bring the entrepreneurs forward.
True. Yeah. Yeah. Well, interesting. We could elaborate a lot about this. We should do that once in the near future. But let's go further on with your presentation and your cases. And that's our coming up. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We do not have that much time. So we have 15 minutes to go. I think the best is that I will introduce the module number 3. So that is about decision making. I give you some examples how to do decision making, and the module 4 that is only about 3 slides. And I think the best would to give it you as an exercise for home, so an homework if you are interested. So then you can also contact me if you have a solution, or if you would like to discuss the solution, then I can give you my supervision and my mentorship. I think that is the most feasible way that we can do right now. Okay, then let's go to module number 3, and that is about decision making. And decision making in this sense, that is a challenge for many people, especially when it comes to finance, and also when it comes to strategic situations. So, for example, to hire or to fire employees, because an entrepreneur also has some duties for the employees and the workers. But in the end, decisions, these are rational choices, and they only reflect the pursuit of self-interest. And self-interest and rational choices can have many forms. For example, if you focus on a decision that is based on stability, it automatically will coincide with a decision that is based on efficiency to find the optimal. But both are rational choices. And to find a solution in strategic situations, scientists have developed the game theory. Game theory that is about a normative decision theory, and highlights in a minimum that two players, so for example, as highlighted here, player 1, so player row and player column, compete among a common source, a market, or a decision towards the opening or the closing of a branch or something else. And game theory that can give you a recommendation on how to act, or how to act on this strategic action. And it is game theory that is a collection of models of rational decision making in interactive situations. And the aim is to analyze strategic and rational patterns of human thought. So, and all these human thoughts, these are a representation of a decision problem, a problem that happens, for example, the investment into an innovation, or the calculation to say, okay, no, that is not relevant for me, so I belong, or I'm doing the capitalization of former processes, of former products, and I do not any investment. And the game theory that consists of two rational actors. So these are the opponents, and they interact and compete among a common resource. All of these players, or of these two players in this slide, they have an individually well-defined objective, and the decision toward that is based on rationalism. And the rationalism that is it based on the efficiency? So do I want to get the most valuable result out of this? Do I'm focusing on the stability, so that I have at least the minimum and I cannot lose more than the minimum? Or do I'm focusing on security, and so on? What I would like to highlight here, the game theory, these two players, for example, have two strategies. There's a strategy for player row that is about A1. There could be an innovation, the investment into an innovation, or B1. That could be the calculation, the maintenance, or the maintaining of the current processes, the current goods. So no innovation needed. And player column has the same strategies. So the innovation or the calculation. And based on the evaluation of the current situation, they get some payoffs represented in the smaller letters A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2, D1, and D2. If, for example, player row chooses strategy A1, the player 1 can either capital or can achieve the result A1 or B1. If the player column chooses the strategy A2 or B2, then this player can either capitalize by choosing A2 the payoff of A2 or C2, or by choosing B2 the strategy B2 the payoff of B2 and D2. So it sounds a little bit complex, but it's in the end it's very, very easy. Here, that is just an ordinary representation of a playboard of the evaluation of a strategic situation. But in the end, what the players are doing, they are assigning utilities to these variables. So, for example, when I was talking before about strategy A1, that is about innovation, we can rename it as innovation and assign, for example, if I am player row and I do make the innovation, then I can I am assigning to this strategy the highest payoff, which is the utility number 4 and the utility number 3. And if I'm focusing on calculation, then I'm assigning the utilities of 2 and 1. But it depends also on the decision of the other player, of the column player. For example, this player also will evaluate the situation. And for example, if this player also assigns the highest amount for innovation, the utility number 4, then we would have a kind of equilibrium. Here, the playboard on the left-hand side above, so that is a kind of a game where everything is clear. So it is a game that provides the highest payoff for all the players, and everyone in this game is satisfied. So, for example, if I am player row, I am choosing innovation, then I get as minimum the utility of 3. And if the player column is also choosing for a strategy innovation, then I have as the maximum the utility of 4. And the same thinking as player column. If player column is choosing, for example, for strategy innovation, the minimum that I can that the player column can achieve, that is the utility of 2. The maximum is number 4. But since they can somehow have a very similar estimation of the situation, they can assume that there is no potential for conflict in this game, in this strategic situation, and they will achieve the highest possible outcome. They have a dominant strategy. The dominant strategy in both cases, in both player cases, the errors go to innovation. But then we also have some games that are not that clear. So, for example, on the right-hand side, the Battle of Sexes. The Battle of Sexes, that is a game where two competitors, or it must not be a competitor, it could be also a couple. It could be collaborators, like, for example, you and your partner. The one is assigns the highest value, for example, to a football game, and the other is assigning the highest value to the visit of a theater. And now you need to make a decision. Because you only can choose one strategy. And this strategy says either we're going together to a football game and my partner has less utilities, but I can achieve the highest utilities, or I'm going with my partner to the theater and my utility is low, but the partner's utility is high. So that is a kind of decision problem that is called the battle of sexes. And without coordination mechanisms, this game is somehow not solvable. Then on the left-hand side, on the bottom, we have poor conflict games. Games where a player always has the opportunity and also the willingness to change the strategy, because either the one player or the other player will be the disgruntled player, and the greed of humans says that is a never-ending story. So it's a cycle game, a poor conflict game that never will stop, or it will stop exactly at this time when one of the competitor faces a breakdown. Then also on the right-hand side, we have, for example, games that do not have an equilibrium, or not an equilibrium, or sorry for this misunderstanding, dysfunctional equilibrium. Like, for example, in the prisoner's dilemma. Even you are choosing your rational strategy, it is possible that the game is resulting into a dysfunctional equilibrium. So example is two prisoners got caught by the police, and the police know both of them made a bank robbery, but the police do not have evidences. But when they caught them, they can say, okay, you have an illegal property of weapons. So for this, you get sent to jail for 2 years. But if you are blaming your cooperating partner, then you get free, but the other one gets to jail for 10 years. And the same offer is valid for your partner. So the equilibrium here that is dysfunctional. To show this, I will later go into this and make it more clear. But when we are talking about 2 players, 2 strategy games, we have more than 6,000 different games to be played. And on this slide, what I would like to highlight is that we have games that are on the strict ordinal level. So the utilities must be allocated unique. So that means you have, for the strategies, 4 unique payoff sets. So these payoff sets are coming from 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then you have only ordinal payoff sets. So a number, for example, a payoff can occur for more than one time. So you have, for example, a same utility for the same strategy or for this different strategies but the same output. In game theory, we are talking about different solution concepts. And the solution concepts, as highlighted here, can be about the dominance, about the security, about the optimum, the efficiency, about the stability. And the stability, so that is also known as the Nash equilibrium. We also have the Shapley value, we have Selton values, and we have a lot of other different solutions concepts that can be applied to different interactive situation and provide a feasible result. But to keep it easy, I'm just focusing now on the concept of the dominance, and it is very, very easy. The player row at this side has two strategies, so A1 and B2. And the condition is for player 1, B1 is larger than D1, larger than A1, larger than C1. And the only thing that this player has to do, according to the concept of dominance, is to evaluate. If I decide between A1 and B1, I need to figure out what is the larger utility for me. Is C1 larger than A1? If yes, then the arrow goes down. In this case, in this strategic situation, A1 is larger than C1, so the arrow goes up. Also, the player needs to define what gives me a higher utility. If, for example, player column is choosing B2, it's very simple. B1 is larger than D1, so the arrow goes up, and we have a very, very clear solution concept for player row, and that is the selection of the strategy A1. And the player 2 is doing the same. So the player 2 is evaluating the interactive situation, and the interactive situation says C2 is larger than D2, larger than A2, and larger than B2. And as you can see here from the arrows, B2 is larger than A2 and D2 is larger than C2. That results into a very, very clear equilibrium. The solution, according to the concept of dominance, is in the intersection between choosing A1 and A2. It guarantees the player's largest output. Sorry. Yeah, that is what, there is some animation, what I said. So the evaluation towards the selection of the strategies according to the concept of dominance. Then we have the solution concept according to security. It can be traced back to the origin of the game theory. So to John von Neumann and Oskar Morgenstern, who, especially Neumann, published the initial concept of game theory in 1928, and later together with Oskar Morgenstern, both published the book on game theory that gave or paved the way for game theory to become an economic or an academic discipline. and they introduced the minimax situation. The minimax situation is about the question, which decision do I need to make to get the minimum payoff out of a strategic situation? And as highlighted here, the player row has to decide between the selection of strategy A1 and strategy B1. What this player is doing is just going in this direction and say the condition number one is A1 is smaller than B1, and therefore I'm selecting the minimum. So that is A1. And in the second step, the player is selecting between the strategy, the payoffs between the payoffs of strategy B1. So that means evaluating which one is smaller. C1 is smaller than D1. So that means the selection then would be for C1. And the second condition, according to the minimax, to the maximin, is I am selecting the maximum of the minimum. So that means I am going again into a kind of an evaluation process, evaluating between the minimas of A1 and C1, and by selecting the maximum of the minimas, I'm resulting into the strategy C1. And the player column is doing the very same. So it's very, very easy process. Just differentiating between the payoffs in one strategy, but in turn, or in contrast to the player row, they are not focusing on the maximin, they are focusing on the minimax. So the minimax, that is about the selection of the minimum of the maxima. So this player is evaluating between A2 and C2. And here you can see our in the initial situation, C2, that is the highest value, followed by D2, A2, and B2. C2 is therefore larger than A2, and in the first decision, I'm selecting C2. Reviewing the strategy B2, that means I just need to consider the initial situation. I can see here that D2 is higher than B2, so the decision therefore is on D2. And these are the maxima that player column could achieve. And according to the minimax solution concept, player column is just taking the minimum out of the maxima. That means this guy, the player column, needs to do an analysis which one is smaller. So D2, according to the initial situation, is smaller than C2. Therefore, the solution would be D2, the minimax. So the minimum of the maxima, the minimum of the highest payoffs is D2. So I lost a little bit the red line. Now what I would like to say here, if we consider, for example, the different if we consider the solution concepts, it provides us some differing solutions. The concept of the dominance differs according to or related or compared to the concept of security. And what I would like to do with you, or give you the exercise to evaluate the following situation. In a real business environment, in an interactive situation, the Smith entrepreneurs maintain a monopoly. But since we know monopolies won't last long, because there are always competitors who would like to go into the monopoly and also make money in this environment, Weber's entrepreneur come into the field and has to decide either to innovate, so step into the market, or to calculate and stay in the market where this player already belongs. So extending the market or reducing the market. And the Smith player or the Smith entrepreneur needs to consider the strategic situation. Do I need to focus on, or do I need to consider the innovation from the Weberian innovation, or do I not? So the decision is towards to build up or to go with the innovation, or to remain in my very static in the static situation. And there is a task for you. The task is, according to this payoff set, find the solution according to the concept of dominance. Find the solution according to the concept of the minimax, maximin and the minimax, and explain your conclusion, your decision. The task 2, that would be a very, very similar situation. The Weber entrepreneur would like to jump into the monopoly market of Smith. But in contrast to the previous situation, the Smith entrepreneur was able to figure out a competition and to build up some market barriers. If you compare, for example, this game with the previous game, I'm jumping now to the previous slide, there are the values changed. So for example, here in the field where the Smith entrepreneur were able to build up market barriers, this player gets a higher payoff by selecting a strategy of calculation instead of where this player missed to build up market barriers, where at least by selecting the strategy innovation, at least the Smith gets the same payoff or same highly related payoff as the Weber entrepreneur. And the task, that is, again, find the solution according to the concept of dominance, find the solution according to the concept of the maximin and the minimax, and explain your conclusion. So explain why you get to this result and what you would recommend, either to focus on the dominance or the solution concept of dominance, or on the solution concept of security. Then also there is the third task. So that would be a game that is coming from, or is very well known under the name of the Battle of Bismarck. And here the players need to decide under uncertainties. So the players just can evaluate the probabilities, but do not really know which decision each of the player will do. So it is also the task for you to find a solution according to the concept of dominance, find the solution according to the concept of the maximin, minimax, and explain your conclusion. I think you have a lot of questions. Oh, I can read the post, Florian. Sorry, the time.
Yes.
I'm finished with my presentation.
Okay.
It took a little bit longer than expected, but it's a brand new paper that will be submitted to the URAM or to the BAM. So sorry for taking more time than expected.
Nothing at all. Do anyone have any questions?
Hi, I have a question, if you don't mind.
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah, to be honest, that was brilliant. Thanks for the presentation, and the questions earlier on by Hans were great. Thanks for that, Hans. My question, just to try and make sense of that presentation, are you saying that in order to consider entrepreneurial decisions, obviously we talked earlier about taking risks are important, coming up with an idea that's going to disrupt the flow, coming up with an idea that's necessary, but also in order for that business or that idea to do well in the market, you need to consider the fact that within the market there's going to be a lot of different players, and in order for your product to succeed, you need to consider the equilibrium. In order to succeed, your game needs to be better than someone else's, or am I off on that one?
Yes, partly. What I would like to highlight here that we have some conflicting roles of entrepreneurship. Some entrepreneurships or some entrepreneurs are static managers, and static managers, they by force they will have a different decision making than like the Austrian schools of economic thought. So they are more liberal, they are more tradition overcoming, and they have fearless decision making. What I would like to highlight with this game theory and the combination with entrepreneurship is to make some business cases. Business cases that can help in decisions, because what I did not show right now so far, that is we have developed a tool, so that is the decision support tool or decision support that belongs on game theory. And by using that, you should be able to consider some interactive situation, and it should help you in decision making. What I would like to highlight here, that is each situation needs a decision, and the decision according to the concept can differ between the dominance, the security, the optimum, the stability, and so on. And it is not always that clear which solution concept could be taken from or could be chosen by an entrepreneur. Sometimes it's it's always a strategic decision, but to launch an innovation could be sometimes more beneficial if you keep it for a strategic time and then launch it on the market. And that is what I would like to highlight here.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. And if other questions, maybe you can send it straight to Florian. Is it okay?
Yes, of course. I offered my supervision and my mentoring. If you have questions, please write me an email, and I will. And we can, for example, we can meet in Teams or in Zoom, or exchange by email.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Florian, for your great presentation. It's very, very interesting, and it needs to have more time in my mind also to give it the right place, and perhaps the acting in our daily life with students. But I'm really interested in what you've presented here. So thanks a lot, and let's keep in contact about all the things you're working on this case. Very, very nice. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much.